September 2018.
The National Weather Service has says that the damage is going to be unbelievable.
Hurricane Florence is on a collision course with the Carolinas.
We could be seeing Katrina-like effects and worse.
Originally a Category 4 hurricane.
This storm is a monster.
Florence weakened but remained a perilous storm.
It is an extremely dangerous, life-threatening, historic hurricane.
Florence was relentless.
This is still an event. It's not over.
The storm raged for days.
That's what we keep seeing from the New Bern area is just a whole lot of water.
Hurricane Florence was one of the most powerful storms ever to hit the Carolinas. One of the most powerful and devastating storms ever to hit our country.
6 months have passed since Florence made landfall.
For the next half hour, we will show you how far we have come.
And how far we still need to go.
The recovery continues.
Good evening. I'm Wes Goforth.
I'm Donnie Cox.
And I'm Valentina Wilson. September 13th, Hurricane Florence started pounding our area. On September 14th, Florence made landfall at 7:15 in the morning near Wrightsville Beach.
Now, Florence sat over eastern North Carolina for days. It did over $17 billion in damage. That's more than Hurricanes Floyd and Matthew combined.
New Bern was one of the hardest hit areas. A 13-foot storm surge covered downtown and destroyed many buildings, and it affected many neighborhoods along the Neuse and Trent rivers. In fact, right here in our studio at News Channel 12, water covered the floor where we're standing right now.
Now, like many of you, we were forced to evacuate. But imagine evacuating to another state, turning on the television news, and seeing your home underwater. Well, that's exactly what happened to Christina and John Hester, but it took them days to get back in town because of the flood. And now, 6 months later, they're still rebuilding.
Right now, we are in the most vicious part of this storm.
The eye wall has already made landfall. It's moving inland.
The National Hurricane Center just put out the statement, landfall is imminent.
That storm surge is a real issue as that emergency situation plays out in New Bern. We talked to an emergency official in New Bern who told us that there are some people on top of their roofs.
That's what we keep seeing from the New Bern area is just a whole lot of water.
I kept asking my husband, you know, are we going to stay here? Are we going to go? A day and a half before the storm came, he finally came home and said, no, let's go. Let's go to your sister's. So we went to Georgia. The businesses have recovered. But the neighborhoods, we're still walking around with a big Band-Aid, you know? I mean, there's still big scars. My name's Christina Hester, and I live in New Bern, North Carolina. My whole entire yard was covered in just house debris, people's personal items, and people would stop and ask if it's okay to search our yard to find their items. Like they wanted their family photos. Awful. I mean, just off. I mean, it looks better than day one. But I mean, you still drive around, there's still debris everywhere. So it took us about a week to get back. And then when we got here, everything was covered in mold.
And we had a bunch of volunteers from church come. We did all the gutting, and then it was kind of staggered, letting it dry, getting power back.
Contractors, electricians, plumbers, stuff like that, unless you know somebody, it's hard to get somebody there.
I've had some people get frustrated with me because I wouldn't do their house, but if I don't have time to do it and I don't have anybody to send there, I don't want to get their hopes up. I'm not grabbing that toilet lid. The water's been cut off since the storm, so it's be interesting to see what happens when we cut it back on.
Addison, our contractor, he's been with us since day one. I mean, he goes to our church. He was here with us, with my husband and I, when we opened up the doors the very first day. You know, he led the group.
I got the other plumbing hooked up in the kitchen. All right, man. Bye.
We were actually blessed again. One of our best friends, they had actually just moved up north to a different job opportunity, and their house was on market in River Bend. And their homes was one of the few homes out in River Bend that didn't flood. And they took it off the market and let us stay there.
I've been living without power in the house here for a month and a half, 2 months I've been back in. I only got water turned back on like a week ago.
I heard my electrician friend's gonna come over.
He's gonna have power turned back on for me, so.
Oh, good, I'm so glad.
So life is starting to take shape again.
If it wasn't for God putting people in our lives, I'd still be standing at my front door going, what are we gonna do? But I love this neighborhood. I really love our street, our people that are here.
Christina says she had to talk her husband into rebuilding their home, but agreed if they were ever flooded again, they would leave. Coming up.
You pick up the pieces by your bootstraps and go on, or you fall apart and live in misery. I'm not gonna live in misery. I'm just gonna pick up my bootstraps.
Hurricane Florence cut off much of Jones County to the outside world. In fact, most of the major highways were underwater.
The only way into Pollocksville was by boat. The Trent River spilled onto Highway 17 and covered many of the homes up to the roof.
And Teresa Hazoppel's house was built in 1954 there. It survived Hurricane Hazel and Hurricane Floyd, but this time Hurricane Florence was just too much and destroyed the house on Foy Street. And the Hazoppels now are acting as their own contractors to rebuild their home.
This is about as bad a flooding as I've ever seen.
It just was relentless. The rain was just absolutely relentless.
We've been through a very trying time in Jones County the past few days.
Winds were weird on this storm.
We've got citizens that have lost everything they've had.
That water just kept coming up. It lasted a whole lot longer than any other storm. This one sat on us.
We marked where Floyd was leveled back in '99, and this water was 3 to 4 feet above that mark.
We do have a lot of empty houses right now. Those that chose to leave, I guess they had their reasons. My name is Teresa Hazoppel, and I live in Pollocksville, North Carolina. I've been riding out storms since I was born. It's a pretty bad feeling when saw the house for the first time. Everything was destroyed. Opened the door and everything that you owned was gone. But, you know, you do one or two things. You pick up the pieces by your bootstraps and go on, or you fall apart and live in misery. I'm not gonna live in misery. I'm just gonna pick up my bootstraps. We live out in our camper out in the front yard, right? And we start in here about 7:30 every morning. We stop about 9 o'clock every night, me and my husband. See if I can, nope, can't get it, we'll have to do it by hand. My husband has moved all my tools. I grew up building with my Uncle Hardell, but my husband, he always says, well, I'm not a carpenter, I'm a mechanic. So I always have to go, he hollers for me to go look at his stuff, and then I can't get my stuff. I'm putting this row in backwards. Now that room I didn't do it that way. This room, the pattern has to come that way to this way. I really hope that we can get her back together. That's my hope. Because this is my town. This is my home. Or I wouldn't be sitting here on the floor with knee pads on and a bad back, being a senior citizen, hammering a floor back together.
Pollocksville Mayor Jay Bender says while some families decided not to rebuild, some damaged properties were sold, and the new owners do intend to move into those properties once restoration is complete.
He also told us there are plans to rebuild the town hall and plans to put a new permanent post office in Pollocksville. Coming up.
I'm too old for this, if you really want to know. You know, there's nothing comfortable in these damn things. You're supposed to spend a weekend in them, not live in them.
Although Florence made landfall in the Wilmington area, Carteret County recorded some of the highest wind gusts. 106 miles an hour at Cape Lookout, 105 miles an hour at Fort Macon. But it was those persistent northeast winds that continued to pile up water in so many places.
In fact, Florence was like a bulldozer, but this time instead of pushing dirt, she was pushing water. And because of the unusual track and speed, this actually pushed the water into the rivers and sounds. But that northeasterly flow you talked about prevented the water from flushing back out to sea as that flow was acting as a dam. It's because of that flow that it pushed the water in the core sound over Highway 70, flooding the home of John and Judy Betts in Williston. It wasn't a matter of whether they would rebuild, but how high they would rebuild. Let's take a look. This is the latest on Florence coming in.
People still driving.
Category 2 down to 100-mile-per-hour winds. This is what we're looking at. It's getting really close.
It's been blowing since, I think about 7 o'clock was when it started this morning.
There was a lot of wind and rain.
And they're getting stronger, so there's one right there.
Something told us to get out, and we did. And it just came across the road. It's just a mess. Well, my name's John Betts. I live in Williston. My house flooded during Florence. Probably we had water about 2 feet deep in the house. Finally were able to get into the house because we had to shovel off the marsh grass. There were things in the kitchen that when we left they were in the living room. And so what we've been doing is raising the house. We've had the house raised. Now the carpenters and construction people have started working inside. You can hear them hammering in there.
It's marking at a quarter and marking at a quarter.
Putting the house back together. Redoing the flooring. New walls, everything, new appliances, the whole works. We had flood insurance to cover it all. We've been living in a little camper in the backyard now for just going on 6 months. You know, there's nothing comfortable in these damn things. You're supposed to spend a weekend in them, not live in them. And my wife, bless her heart, she wants to get in, you know, a woman likes her home. She wants to be in the home. You know, you can't cook in here. You know, a little bitty refrigerator there. I'm too old for this shit. If you really want to know, you know, it may not look like I'm 83, but I am. I'm going on 84 in about 4 months. We're ready to get out. We're not ever going camping again, my wife and I. We're not ever going camping.
Steve Steiner raised the Betts home. He tells us his company has been busy elevating homes in Down East, but that the soggy conditions of the past few months have created major delays. The Carteret County Planning Office says it has received requests for elevation assistance for 134 properties. Coming up.
Right now I'm just squeegeeing out the candy store.
This one little boy just wouldn't quit. When everybody else had left, he was still in here.
The kid's got to save a candy store.
The final stop on our trip across eastern North Carolina takes us to Swansboro, where the historic district was heavily damaged by all the wind and rain.
Ed Radley has two businesses in Swansboro. One of them, Candy Adventure, was heavily hit. The storm took an emotional toll on the Radleys because they also had damage to their home, but they took loss and turned it into opportunity.
Swansboro homes and businesses took a major hit from Hurricane Florence, but that isn't stopping neighbors from coming together to rebuild.
Here's some more of my buddies.
I mean, I've heard from some old-time locals that said that it was just one of the worst storms that they've gone through.
About my friend Phil Keggie's house, and we're coming up on it right now. Typical of some of the houses. There's her roof.
But we're resilient people.
It's very positive, very positive.
I wanted to help my community.
Everybody's upbeat, they're not down.
Hey, I'm Ed Radley here at Candy Adventure in downtown Swansboro, North Carolina. We knew this being one of the lower lying areas in Swansboro, that past experience that it did flood. So I knew that there was going to be some things that were going to be along. We sustained heavy damage at our home. Part of the roof was tore off. Trees were down throughout the property. But we knew we had to stay here to protect our livelihood. Then the rain started to come into the home. The next day got much worse. Day 3 of the storm, the water had subsided enough here where it could come down.
But it'll all drain out of here.
It was still about knee deep when we got in here. Part of the town docks had busted through our front doors and wedged themselves up against our counters in here. Yeah, it was a little bit overwhelming. First thing that we noticed when we walked in was the water level. You could see the line was pretty distinct with all the material that had left. The water line was just about here.
Come on. You're not supposed to be in here.
Swansboro is famous for the little ducks that wander around here.
Come on.
They become kind of our mascots or our pets.
Here they come.
We hadn't been down here for about a week.
They know I got food for them.
When we first returned, the ducks had followed me from outside to inside because they were looking for food. So
come on, guys.
I went to the popcorn section and, made them pretty happy with some fresh corn.
Come on. Come on.
So it was kind of neat.
There we go. That's my finger side.
A lot of the townspeople had come out to help us. We had kind of put a little Facebook post out saying, hey, look, we're going to try to get down to the candy store. If you want to help out, come on down. We were pretty much overwhelmed by the response that we got.
It's come a long way today. Got all the old sheetrock out of here, thanks to a lot of helping hands.
That's when these little red shoes walked up.
Right now I'm just squeegeeing out the candy store.
This one little boy just wouldn't quit. When everybody else had left, he was still in here.
A kid's got to save a candy store.
And he just said, I got to save the candy. It was at that point that you realized that, hey, we got to rebuild this no matter what.
Here we are on day 2. You can see we got just about all the demo done and we're starting to clean up. Call us crazy, but not only are we going to rebuild, but there's our new space we're going to expand. As you can see, we're now able to expand into the space next to us.
One thing that you'll notice is if you were here prior to the storm, this is where the store ended. We've taken this wall down and opened up into our new area. The one great thing that we've always wanted to do but never had the space was birthday parties. We've added games. We've got a projector, it's called Virtual Floor, to keep the kids entertained for events and parties. There's an old-fashioned soda fountain, which we're going to do Italian sodas, ice cream, sundaes. It was just a milestone to say, hey, look, we're returning to some form of normalcy. walk up and down the street now, people are hard pressed. If they didn't know the hurricane came, they would think that, you know, what took you so long to reopen? I know that we'll probably get flooded in the future again. This storm brought in, you know, a lot of devastation, but it also provided us the opportunity to expand. So, you know, there's always something bright that comes out of something so negative.
The cleanup makes it look as though downtown Swansboro was untouched during the storm.
But there are still areas of Duplin County without power today. The scars are very visible in Havelock and Newport, and homes sit empty in Fairfield Harbor and in River Bend, and the total recovery could take years.
We know many of you are wondering, when might we be able to get back into our station? Well, we can tell you that we do plan to restore the building and to resume broadcast from this studio later this year.
And we thank you for joining us tonight as we continue to cover the recovery of Hurricane Florence. For Valentina Wilson, Donnie Cox, I'm Wes Goforth. Good night.